There's a bird in the forests of southeastern Australia that can reproduce any sound it has ever heard with an accuracy so complete that it routinely fools the animals that made those sounds in the first place. It mimics other birds so perfectly that those birds respond to the imitation as if it were real, adjusting their own behavior to the call they are hearing, which is not a call from another bird, but a call from a medium-sized, ground-dwelling pheasant-like creature that has spent the last several years memorizing everything it has ever heard and can now produce all of it simultaneously if it chooses to, layering the calls of 20 or 30 different species into a single continuous performance. It also mimics chainsaws. It mimics car alarms. It mimics construction equipment. It mimics camera shutters, both the mechanical shutter of a film camera and the digital shutter sound of a modern camera, correctly distinguished and reproduced separately. It mimics the calls of birds it has never met in person, but whose recorded calls were played near its territory by researchers. It mimics the sound of a crying human baby. It mimics other lyrebirds mimicking chainsaws, which means it has learned an imitation of an imitation, preserving through its own copying the acoustic memory of a chainsaw that may no longer exist in the forest where the first lyrebird heard it. The lyrebird is the most accomplished vocal mimic in the animal kingdom, and the system that produces this mimicry is the most sophisticated sound production apparatus that evolution has constructed in any bird, possibly in any animal. And it deploys this system not because it needs to in any survival sense, but because for a male lyrebird, the quality of the performance is the quality of his reproductive prospects, and the reproductive prospects of a male lyrebird are entirely determined by how impressive the display is. This is the story of an animal that became a living acoustic archive of its entire environment and did it to attract a mate. The lyrebird's syrinx, the vocal organ of birds, located at the junction of the trachea and the bronchi, different in position and in structure from the human larynx, is the most complex syrinx of any bird that has been studied. Most songbirds have a syrinx with 4 to 9 pairs of muscles controlling the tension and configuration of the membranes that produce sound. The lyrebird has 4 pairs of muscles, which is fewer than many other songbirds, but those 4 pairs are arranged and operated with a precision that allows the bird to produce sounds that other birds with more muscles cannot approach. The key capability is independent control of each side of the syrinx. The lyrebird can operate its left and right bronchi independently, producing 2 completely different sounds simultaneously and blending them in real time. This is analogous to a musician playing 2 different instruments at once, except that both instruments are inside the same body and are being played by a single nervous system, and the musician has never had a lesson and learned everything by ear. The lyrebird's mimicry begins when it is a chick, listening to the sounds around it and beginning to practice them in the quiet of the nest. The learning process continues throughout its life, with new sounds being added to the repertoire as they are encountered and mastered. A male lyrebird's repertoire is not fixed at adulthood. It grows continuously, each new sound heard in the territory being assessed, practiced, and eventually incorporated if it meets whatever standard the lyrebird applies to the sounds it chooses to reproduce. What standard that is exactly is not fully understood. Lyrebirds do not mimic every sound they hear. They are selective, incorporating some sounds into their repertoire and ignoring others, and the selection criteria are not entirely obvious. What is clear is that the sounds they select are reproduced with extraordinary fidelity, a fidelity that spectrographic analysis, the visual representation of sound frequency over time, confirms approaches or achieves accuracy sufficient to fool electronic detection equipment designed to identify bird species by their calls. When researchers play recorded lyrebird mimicry of other species to automated bird call identification software, the software identifies the mimic species rather than identifying the lyrebird. The lyrebird's imitation of a superb fairy wren registers as a superb fairy wren. Its imitation of a yellow-tailed black cockatoo registers as a yellow-tailed black cockatoo. The copy is, to the measurement system designed to distinguish originals, indistinguishable from the original. The biological purpose of the mimicry is display. The male lyrebird's primary use of its vocal capabilities is the breeding season display, performed on a mound of earth that the male constructs specifically for the purpose. A raised platform of scraped soil, approximately a meter in diameter, that elevates the displaying bird above the surrounding forest floor and gives the sound a slightly better acoustic projection into the forest. On this mound, the male performs. The performance combines the vocal display, the mimicry, the original Lyrebird calls, the layered simultaneous productions, with a visual display of the extraordinary tail feathers that give the lyrebird its name. The tail of an adult male lyrebird consists of 16 feathers. 2 large outer feathers curved into the lyre shape that inspired both the bird's name and the animal it is named after, 12 long filamentary feathers that spread between the outer feathers like strings, and 2 guard feathers. When the tail is raised and spread during display, it forms a shimmering silver fan above the bird's head that catches the filtered light of the forest floor and transforms the displaying bird into a visual spectacle that matches the acoustic one. The female lyrebird watches. She is smaller than the male, with a simpler tail, and she has evolved to be discriminating because the quality of the male she chooses determines the quality of the genetic material her offspring will receive, and she is investing significant reproductive effort in a single egg per year. Lyrebirds raise only 1 chick per breeding season, so the selection matters. She watches multiple males display. She compares. She chooses. What she is assessing when she watches the display is not entirely clear to researchers, because the display contains so much information that distinguishing which elements she is evaluating and which she is simply registering has proven methodologically difficult. The tail's symmetry and completeness, the accuracy and range of the vocal mimicry, the stamina of the performance, which can last for extended periods and which demonstrates the displaying bird's physical condition, the quality of the mound itself, which reflects the effort the male has invested in preparation. Male lyrebirds have been recorded displaying for up to 4 hours at a stretch during the breeding season, singing continuously, cycling through their full repertoire multiple times, maintaining the tail display throughout, and doing this every day for the months of the breeding season. This is an extraordinary energetic investment, and the investment is the point. A bird that can sustain a 4-hour display every day for several months is demonstrating a level of physical fitness and resource access that a bird in poor condition could not approach. The mimicry's accuracy is not static across the performance. Lyrebirds have been observed using their mimicry strategically during courtship, which is a finding that has attracted significant attention from researchers. A study published in 2021 documented male lyrebirds producing mimicry of the mobbing calls, the alarm calls that small birds produce when they detect a predator, during the final stages of courtship, specifically at the moments when the female attempted to leave the display area before mating. The mobbing calls of alarmed small birds trigger a specific behavioral response in most forest birds. They stop moving and look for the threat. When a male lyrebird produced these calls at the moment the female moved to leave, the female stopped and froze, her attention directed outward, looking for the predator that the calls were indicating. The male took advantage of this pause to continue the display or to attempt mating. The lyrebird was using mimicry as manipulation. It was producing false alarm calls to prevent the female from leaving at a moment critical to its reproductive success, exploiting the female's hardwired response to predator alarm calls by generating the acoustic signal that triggers that response without the actual predator that should generate it. This is sophisticated in a way that is uncomfortable to contemplate, because it implies a level of contextual understanding of both the calls being produced and the behavioral effects they generate that goes beyond simple imitation. The lyrebird was not mimicking the mobbing calls because it had heard them nearby and was adding them to the display repertoire in the normal way. It was producing them specifically at a specific moment in response to a specific behavioral outcome it wanted to prevent. Whether this constitutes anything like intentional deception in the sense that the word implies a conscious understanding of the difference between true and false information is a philosophical question that the data cannot definitively answer. What the data shows is that the behavior works, that it is targeted, and that it is not random. The lyrebird's role in the forest ecosystem extends beyond its reproductive display in ways that have only recently been fully appreciated. The lyrebird spends most of its non-display time foraging through the leaf litter and soil of the forest floor, using its powerful feet to scratch and dig in search of invertebrates, worms, and other soil fauna. The digging is intensive. A single lyrebird turns over somewhere between 100 and 200 tons of soil and leaf litter per year in its territory, an amount of material that, distributed across the lyrebird's home range, represents a significant contribution to soil aeration, nutrient cycling, and the physical mixing of the forest floor's organic layer with the mineral soil beneath. The lyrebird is an ecosystem engineer in the literal sense that its foraging physically restructures the habitat it lives in, creating the specific soil conditions that a large number of plant and invertebrate species depend on, and that would be different in the lyrebird's absence. The connection between the lyrebird's acoustic virtuosity and its role as a soil engineer is not intuitive, but both are the products of the same evolutionary pressures that produced an animal well-adapted to the specific ecology of the southeastern Australian forest. The foraging produces the energy that sustains the displays, and the displays produce the reproductive success that perpetuates the foraging. The lyrebird's mimicry has also preserved acoustic information that would otherwise be lost. Lyrebirds in captivity or in human-adjacent environments learn sounds from their surroundings and pass those sounds on to other lyrebirds through social learning, creating chains of acoustic transmission that can persist for decades. The most dramatic documented example of this is the camera shutter mimicry. Lyrebirds in Australian zoos began mimicking the mechanical shutter sounds of film cameras during the period when film cameras were commonly used by zoo visitors, and continue to produce these sounds decades after film cameras disappeared from the zoos, having passed the imitation on to subsequent generations of birds through the same social learning that allows wild lyrebirds to acquire calls from neighboring adults. The lyrebirds in Australian zoos today are mimicking a sound that no camera in those zoos currently makes, preserving in their vocal repertoire the acoustic ghost of a technology that their parents or grandparents learned to imitate and passed on without either generation knowing what the sound was or where it came from. This is the lyrebird as living archive, not merely an archive of its own individual acoustic history, but an archive of its lineage's acoustic history, carrying sounds forward through time in the way that oral tradition carries stories, maintaining them as long as they continue to be learned and performed and passed on, and losing them when the chain of transmission breaks. The lyrebird's forest, right now, contains chainsaws it has not heard for years, car alarms from vehicles that have long since been scrapped, the calls of other lyrebirds mimicking sounds that those lyrebirds learned from lyrebirds that are now dead. The acoustic landscape of the forest as it existed decades ago, preserved in the syrinxes of birds that were not alive when the sounds were first recorded, performing for females who have no way of knowing that what they are hearing is a memory. The male on his mound raises his tail. The silver fan catches the morning light. He opens his bill, and the forest fills with a sound that is simultaneously his and not his, a performance assembled from everything the forest has ever said, offered to a female who is listening with the specific attention of an animal for whom this moment is the most consequential of the year. She is deciding whether he is good enough. He is giving her everything the forest remembers.